Je anilo premadano paramakacho Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Gopijana On the nectar of instruction. Today is the fourth and concluding section of our series on this book by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is the translation of Srila Rupa Goswami's Sri Upadesh Amrita. So today we will chant together text number 6. You can all turn to page 58 and 59. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dristai Svabhava Janitair Vapushas Chadoshair Na Prakritatvam Iha Bhakta Janasya Pashye Gangam Basam Na Kalu Budbudha Fena Pankai Brahma Dravatvam Abakachati Niradharmai Drastai Sabhava Janitar Vapushas Chadoshire Na Prakritattvamiha Bhakta Janasya Pashyet Gangam Basham Na Kalubud Buddhafena Pankhair Brahma Dravattvamapakachati Niradharmai Dristhaya Svabhava Janitarna Vapushascha Dosair Na Prakritattvamiha Bhakta Janasya Pashyet Gangam Basham Na Kalubud Buddhafena Pankhair Brahma Dravattvamapakachati Niradharmai Ladies, Dristai, seen by ordinary vision. Svabhava janitai, born of one's own nature. Vapusha, of the body. Cha, and doshai, by the faults. Na, not. Prakritatvam, the state of being material. Iha, in this world. Bhakta janasya, of a pure devotee. Pashyet, one should see. Ganga ambasham, of the Ganges water. Na, not. Kadu, certainly. Budbudha thena pankai, by bubbles, foam, and mud. Brahma dravatvam, the transcendental nature. Abhakajati, is spoiled. Niradharmai, the characteristics of water. We'll read the translation by Srila Prabhupada. Being situated in his original Krishna-conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee's having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee. But despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges waters do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. In reading this verse, my mind is immediately drawn to thinking about Srila Prabhupada during his Antya Lila pastimes, his final year with us, when his body seemed to be racked by so many difficulties on account of the diseases which plagued him in his last year. But as we read here, it is a mistake to ever think that the pure devotee and even his body is in any way conditioned by the modes of material nature. As the verse describes, sometimes in the Ganges water may have bubbles, foam, or mud in it, especially in Calcutta, for example, where the Ganges is flowing. We see so many things in the Ganges water. Sometimes even they pump industrial wastes and other things into the Ganga. And yet there are people who every morning very faithfully go to the Ganga and they take their dip there. They simply brush away whatever is floating and they take their bath. And they maintain very nice health, both materially as well as spiritually. So we have to understand that the Ganges is always pure. In fact, it is said that the British also observed this because, of course, they made their headquarters at first in Calcutta. Calcutta and Bombay both, but Calcutta was one of their main headquarters of the British Raj. And they used to take their ships from Calcutta to London, and they would fill up with Ganges water, and they would find that after more than 1.5, 2 months' time, the water was still pure. It did not go bad. So even from material analysis, the Ganges has got some special purifying potency. So the pure devotee is compared in this verse to be like the Ganges water. That even though there may seem to be some as it says here, defect due to birth or complexion or illness or old age, infirmity, whatever it may be, no way should we ever see the pure devotee in a material sense. Neither materially from the physical point of view, nor certainly from the spiritual point of view. In other words, the pure devotee is wholly and solely devoted, body, mind, and words in the service of Krishna. And therefore he is transcendental in all respects. Srila Prabhupada begins by quoting one text from the Bhagavad Gita to describe the pure devotee on page 60. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityayitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Of course, there are some important points to note. One thing is that a pure devotee does not fall down in any circumstance. we should expect that conditions will constantly change. Because after all, the material energy is endlessly mutable. We cannot expect any type of permanence from this very temporary world that we are living in. And therefore, conditions are always changing. But our consciousness should be fixed on Krishna. And as such, our consciousness should not undergo any type of change whatsoever. It is compared that a great soul is like a powerful mountain. When the monsoon rains come and beat upon the mountainside, it does not in any way affect the mountain, because he is so powerful and great. Or sometimes a pure devotee is compared to be like an ocean. And it is said that although many rivers may rush into the ocean, the level of the ocean is not affected, because the ocean is already so vast that no amount of water rushing into the ocean can in any way change it. In the same way, all kinds of circumstances or situations in no way will disturb a pure devotee. Why? Because a pure devotee has no material motive. Abhyacharini bhakti means unalloyed devotion. In this verse, mam chayo vyabhicharena abhyacharini bhakti. This means without any material motivation. It is due to our material desires and our efforts to fulfill our material desires that we undergo the discomforts or the happinesses and distresses of material existence. If we have given up all kinds of material desires and our only interest is to please Krishna, then how can any circumstance disturb us? Whatever may happen. You look at Prahlad Maharaj. No one will ever have such a situation as Prahlad. Bhakta Prahlad's father tried to kill him in so many ways, and yet see how equipoised he was. Another good example that we all know, Arjuna. Anybody who has read Bhagavad Gita or Mahabharata knows that Arjuna had to face very, very powerful opposition. But by grace of Krishna, by being Krishna conscious, he was fixed, steady. Nothing could disturb his mind. So our attachment to Krishna has to be this strong, that we will never be daunted by any type of circumstance. Then we are said to be Brahmabhuyaya Kalpate. That it means that he achieves the level of Brahman. He achieves the spiritual platform, Brahmabhuta Prasanatma, fully joyful. That spiritual platform is fully joyful. No anxieties. Anxiety is due to fear. Everyone in this world is fearful. But when you become Krishna conscious, then fear itself vanishes. Because fear, Krishna is said to make fearful, even fear personified runs in fear of Krishna. So when you take shelter of Krishna, fear becomes banished. This is the point. You will not have fear under all circumstances. You'll be fearless. Prabhupada's name, Abhay Charanavinda. No fear. Prabhupada's father gave him this name, Abhay, because he was fearless. He wanted him to be fearless, and by the grace of Radharani, Prabhupada was fearless. He never had any fearfulness. If you take shelter of Srimati Radharani, this is what it means when she raises her hand. Have no fear. You are under my protection, the divine potency of the Lord. So, when we look at a devotee of the Lord, it is said that we should hear from him, not simply see him. In other words, how do we know who is a pure devotee? By vision we may be fooled. It is said that a person may appear to be very highly qualified, but as soon as he opens his mouth, you really know the truth. When someone opens their mouth and starts talking, then you know whether they're a wise man or whether they're a fool. So a pure devotee has to be seen through his words and through his service. Yesterday we learned how to distinguish the different categories of devotees, the kanista, the madhyam, and the uttam. So in each case we can know not just by the way they look, because looks are deceptive. Someone may, have a very glazed look in their eyes, fluttering their eyelashes to appear as if they're feeling transcendental ecstasy, but the next moment they may go outside and light up a cigarette. We have seen that. When we first went to India with Prabhupada, we saw people who appeared to be in ecstasy. They're like this, and sometimes they would even fall on the ground. They were in so much ecstasy. But the next moment they would go out and light up a bidi, light up their cigarette. And then we could understand this was all an imitation. So we have to actually judge someone by their behavior and activities. There's a verse in this regard, which we have quoted the other day, Api Chet Sudaracharo. You can see this verse on page 61. Api Chet Sudaracharo Pajanti Mama Nanyabak Sadur Eva Samantabhya Samyak Vyavashito Hisha. Even if a devotee sometimes seems to engage in abominable activities, he should be considered a sadhu, a saintly person, because his actual identity is that of one engaged in the loving service of the Lord. In other words, he is not to be considered an ordinary human being. That is not an excuse for someone to commit abominable activities. But if by chance, on account of some previous bad habit, one may trip, incidentally fall down, then it may be overlooked. If the person is properly situated, he will quickly be righted. This does not, however, mean that someone may repeatedly have fall downs. Then that is a different matter altogether. So, in regard to birth, there is sometimes a controversy, especially in India. Certain persons claim hereditary birthright to the title of Goswami, for example. In our line, the title Goswami means the master of the senses. Go means senses, Swami means controller or master. But there are actual descendants, seminal descendants, coming from Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya. And these persons who can show a hereditary line coming from Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu, sometimes they claim the title of Goswami. But actually, Prabhupada points out that it requires more than a blood connection, since these personalities are actually not different than Krishna. These are Advaita Acharya and Nityananda are actual expansions of the Supreme Lord. You cannot actually claim connection simply through seminal lineage. The real connection must be a spiritual one. If someone wants to say that they have the title of Goswami, then they have to follow in the footsteps of Rupa and Sanatan. Srila Rupa and Srila Sanatan Goswamis, both of them gave up all connection with material life. They renounced their families, they lived as renunciates in Vrindavan, and they practiced the highest level of pure Krishna Bhakti. So anyone who wants to follow in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami may actually be given the title Goswami. Otherwise, it is not proper. Now, we have personal experience that because Srila Prabhupada awarded the title Goswami to some of his Western disciples, when they went to India, people said, "How can you be as Goswami? You are not born in the family of Advaita Acharya or Nityananda Prabhu. You are a foreigner by birth." And this created some controversy. In fact, we found that Prabhupada was even criticized, sometimes for, quotes, destroying Vedic culture. People actually said to Prabhupada, "You have made people so-called Brahmins, you have awarded this title of Goswami. This is not at all proper." But Prabhupada showed from scripture that everything he did was bona fide. That one is not Brahmin by birth, but by qualification. And similarly, the title Goswami has to be awarded in the same way. Of course, those who have the title of Goswami should be very humble. In other words, they should not think themselves to be very great or superior in any way. And they should not look down, for example, on someone else who may be born, as Prabhupada said, in the Nityananda Vangsha line or in the Dvaitacharya's line. We have to be very careful about committing any kind of aparat. Yesterday we discussed how the different Vaishnavas must be respected. As we pointed out yesterday, the problem may be that someone who is kanistha cannot distinguish. A neophyte devotee has difficulty in distinguishing who is advanced and who is not advanced. They have difficulty in seeing anything except Krishna and Guru. Everyone else they don't respect properly. So, unless someone is actually on the Madhyam platform, it is very, very difficult for them to avoid this Vaishnava aparat. And since the Vaishnava aparat is described as the elephant offense, hati mata, mad elephant. Why is it called mad elephant? Because, of course, they don't allow elephants to be roaming about here in Houston. But the fact is that in India, if an elephant gets loose and runs into the, say, garden or the land which was plowed and the fields, what happens to the crops? They're immediately crushed. An elephant that is running around, he just destroys everything in his path. So when one commits Vaishnava aparad, this is called hati mata. It is an elephantine offense. It is such a great offense that it destroys, it creates havoc in the devotion, on the devotional creeper. It crushes it. Sometimes we hear that whatever you do in spiritual life is your permanent asset. It can never be taken from you. But there's one way you can lose it. If you commit Vaishnava aparad, then whatever your gains are, they can be taken away from you. Krishna does not excuse Vaishnava aparad. In fact, the only way for aparad up to the Vaishnava to be excused is if you beg the Vaishnava who you have offended. Please forgive me. Haridas Thakur says, you have to fall at his feet crying, realizing that your whole spiritual life now is at stake. And you have to beg his forgiveness. Just like we see in the example of Durvasha Muni begging at the feet of Maharaj Ambarish for the offense which he committed. So that offense can come when we try to distinguish the Vaishnava on the bodily platform. Just like if we say, so-and-so is an American Vaishnava, or so-and-so is a black Vaishnava, or so-and-so is a Gujarati Vaishnava, or so-and-so is an Indian Vaishnava. This is all materialistic vision. Arche Vishnu Shila Dir Guru Shu Naramatir Vaishnava Jati Buddhi. Anyone who sees a Vaishnava as belonging to a particular land has the same hellish mentality as a person who sees the guru as materialistic or the deity made of stone. So we must get above this type of bodily designation, especially if we're going to deal with the devotees. Otherwise, we become guilty of Vaishnava aparad, which will spoil our spiritual life. There is no place for sectarianism in the movement of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted so many different persons within his mission. In fact, he raised persons like Haridas Thakur, who was born in a Mohammedan family, to the position of Namacharya. He raised Rupa and Sanatan, who were in the service of the Mohammedan administration, and they had gotten Muslim names to the highest, topmost position. So in the dealings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he made no distinction regarding birth or background. So such understanding is strictly forbidden in the Vaishnava movement. How do we judge the Vaishnavas? We have to see by their behavior. And a superior Vaishnava is always to be accepted as spiritual master. The real way to judge someone is if you find that they're more advanced, then you should take them as good as being your guru. When someone's more advanced than you, you show them all respect and you try to gain knowledge from them and get their blessings. So this is the main points which are brought out in this verse. Now, before we go to the next text, let us see if anyone has any questions so far. Yes? But that's different. When you see a devotee who's lazy, that means his qualities are not very advanced. Because a Vaishnava is not lazy. He's always actively engaged in Krishna's service. Laziness is not being referred to here. When it says, do not judge someone because of their birth, it doesn't mean because of their actions. You must judge according to someone's actions. If someone is lazy, that's not very good. There's so much to be done in Krishna's service. How can someone be lazy? It means that they're not very advanced. You understand? It's different than saying someone is born here or there. That's a different point. It doesn't mean that now, in order to avoid committing any offense, you make no distinction. In fact, it was said yesterday, you must distinguish. The Madhyam Vaishnava must distinguish who is advanced and who is not advanced. If you can't make that distinction, then it means that you're a Kanistha. Unless you're Uttamadikari and you make no distinctions. The Uttamadikari makes no, therefore it's said that happiness, it says that the fools and liberated souls are always happy. Fools and liberated souls are always happy. So you may think that a fool and liberated soul are equal because they're both happy, but their happiness is totally different. Similarly, if someone makes no distinctions and sees a lazy person and says, actually he's a pure devotee, that person who's seeing in that way, if he's a Uttamadikari, that's one thing. But it may be that you're a neophyte by seeing like that. A Madhyamadikari can clearly see what is what. Another question, yes? Where are you reading from? I know, but which page? Page 59? Low family means by activity. A low family is a family that does not follow Vedic principles. Families which are not following Vedic principles are considered fallen. Vedic culture is the basis of human life. It is the standard of human life. So if a family is not following the Vedic etiquettes and principles, then it's considered to be fallen. Clear? Yes?
You're mentioning about the Goswami. Some of the Goswamis there, family Goswamis, and they came to the individual there. And some of which have been, I should say, closely related to the Pakistani Muslim.
Yes, yes. He's asking about the Goswamis who maintain the temples in Vrindavan. Therefore I said, you give them respect. Give them respect. As we expect them to respect our ISKCON Goswamis, so we also give them respect. They're coming in the lines. They take the title of Goswami because they are coming in the line of maintaining the deities of the various Goswamis. So the Goswami title they are taking as hereditary. But Prabhupada said we should respect them. They're following principles, they're worshipping the deity, they chant Hare Krishna. They're to be given respect. Give them all respect. Prabhupada gave them all respect. In dealing with the Goswamis in Vrindavan, Prabhupada was very, very respectful. He was very careful not to commit any offenses to them. And many of them are very favorable to us. Some of them are very favorable. Some of them still see on the material platform though. Just like in one temple, two of our devotees went, and they were looking very lovingly at the deity. So the pujari, who was one of the Goswamis, said that yes, these were Western devotees, they said yes, if you continue to look with such devotion on this deity, then in your next birth, you may take birth here in Vrindavan, in this family, and you can also worship this deity. So of course Prabhupada told the two devotees that you should have told him, and if you continue to worship this deity, then in your next birth you can take birth in Houston and do Sankirtan. You can take birth in America and do Sankirtan. So everybody's blessing each other this way. Yes. Not Mohammedan. They were treated, Rupa and Sanatan were treated as Mohammedans because they took the employment under the Mohammedan rule, but actually they were born in high-class Brahmin families originally. Yeah, because in India at the time, if anyone associated intimately with Mohammedans, they were considered to have lost their caste. This is the idea. In fact, that's how many people became converted to being Muslims in India. In fact, the Muslims used to go around and simply sprinkle water on people. And simply by being touched, from the water touched by a Muslim, people would be decasted, you could say. They would be thrown out of Hindu society. Large numbers of Hindus were converted to becoming Muslims simply by this method. Otherwise, there was no Muslims in India originally. Excuse me? Were they Rupa and Sanatan? Rupa and Sanatan are eternal associates of Lord Krishna. Rupa is Rupa Manjari. He's an eternal associate. It is said that he's the most intimate associate of Radha and Krishna. Wherever Radha and Krishna appear anywhere, Rupa Goswami appears with them. So sometimes the Lord's associates, they take unusual births and they seem to undergo what appears to be materialistic circumstances. But actually deep within, they're never forgetful of Krishna. Just like Srila Prabhupada. From an ordinary viewpoint, one might judge, well, Prabhupada joined Gandhi's movement and he was working for nationalism. He went to school and he was studying, then he got married and he was engaged in ordinary householder affairs. But if you want to know what Prabhupada's mood was, and Prabhupada himself says, I wasted so many years in this way. But then in some letters, like I got one letter from Prabhupada, and Prabhupada writes, I can never remember a moment when I was ever forgetful of Krishna. So we have to understand that such personalities, although apparently in worldly circumstance, are actually completely under the control of Krishna. Krishna is just setting their life, setting the stage, you could say, to make their act more dramatic. It's just to glorify them, to create some circumstance to glorify them further. So we have to be very careful. Just like sometimes we say Narad Muni, that he was born, to a family, to a maidservant, right? He was the son of a maidservant. So, which appears to be a very ordinary birth. I wrote Prabhupada a letter asking about Narad Muni in his ordinary birth, and Prabhupada wrote back and he said, you should never ever think that Narada Muni was ever ordinary. No, never think like that. So this means that Krishna creates these situations to teach us something. Just like Lord Brahma, even Lord Shiva. Lord Brahma ran after his daughter. Lord Shiva ran after the Mohini avatar, the female form that Krishna took. So both of them, you can say, oh, they fell down by this. You can't say Brahma fell down. If you say it, you have to qualify it. We understand that Krishna arranges these things to teach, only for the purpose of teaching. Otherwise, they're never ordinary persons.
What I was getting is that there was the intention that they were just like ordinary people, and just by association and not with the people of promise. I was thinking of the question that Bhaktivedanta asked yesterday, that by the association of a guru, even though we could have initiated.
Yeah, but that's no, it's not like that. I see your point. It is possible that by association with a great devotee, one's whole life can be transformed. For example, there's the example of Narad Muni and the hunter Migrari. Simply by a moment's association with Migrari, with Narad Muni, Migrari became transformed. But the fact is that generally one has to qualify himself for the mercy of the spiritual master by following his instructions. So Rupa and Sanatan, they also were highly qualified. For example, when they came in front of Lord Chaitanya, please understand how they came. They took straw in their mouth. I mean, this person, one of them was the chief minister of the entire government, and the other one was the finance minister. Now, as they were in the highest positions possible in the government, but when going to this monk, this renunciate, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they took straw from the ground and stuck it in their mouth, like an animal, like a dumb animal. And they bound their hands and they fell down on the ground just as if they were animals eating grass. You try to see the qualification of Rupa and Sanatan. No doubt, it's no doubt that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestowed his causeless mercy upon them, but please see how receptive they were. They were so humble. They were so ready. They were so able to receive Krishna's mercy. So, Prabhupada says that in order for spiritual knowledge to be transmitted, the guru must be potent, and the disciple must be receptive. And Prabhupada gives the example, just like a man is potent and a woman is fertile, then automatically conception takes place. In the same way, it can't be just that the guru is potent and the disciple is neutral or ordinary. The disciple must be as qualified as the guru in order for real spiritual knowledge to be transmitted. That is the point. In Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada points out how qualified Krishna is, but equally how qualified Arjuna is as a disciple. So it's not enough that you say, well, this guru is qualified, and even though I'm useless, he'll make me qualified. Of course, that's how we should think. If we think anything else than that, it is not good. But fact of the matter is that we must try to qualify ourselves as far as possible. Rupa and Sanatan were highly qualified, even before they met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After all, as I said, they're eternal associates of the Lord. Another question? let us go on to the next verse. Is the air conditioning working today? What happened? It's so hot today. I think it was not turned down early. Maybe it's not working properly. Huh? No. Every day is cool. Today is not cool. Anyway, what is that verse? Matashparshas takunteya sitoshna sukha dukkada agamapaino nityas tam statiksha sarvarata. That's for waving away flies. It's not a fan. So let us chant text number 7. Everybody ready? Text number 7. Let us chant together. Syat Krishna Nama Charitadi Sitapi Avidya Pitopa Tapa Rasanasya Na Rochika Nu Kintva Darat Anudinam Kalu Shaheva Jastam Svadvi Kramat Bhavati Tad Gada Mula Hantri Shad Krishna Nama Charitadi Sitapya Vidya Pito Pataptya Rasanasya Narochikanu Kintva Darana Nudinam Kalushaiva Justam Svadvi Kramat Bhavati Tad Garamula Hantri Syat Krishna Nama Charitadya Sitapti Vidya Pito Patapta Rasanasa Narochikanu Kintva Darana Nudinam Kalushaiva Justa Svadvi Kramat Bhavati Tad Garamula Hantri Shat is Krishna of Lord Krishna. Nama, the holy name. Charitadi, character, pastimes, and so forth. Sita, sugar candy. Api, although. Avidya, of ignorance. Pita, by the bile. Upatatta, afflicted. Rasanasya, of the tongue. Na, not. Urochika, palatable. Nu, oh, how wonderful it is. Kintu, but. Adara, carefully. Anudinam, every day or 24 hours daily. Kalu, naturally. Sa, that. Sugar candy of the holy name. Eva, certainly. Justa, taken or chanted. Svadi, relishable. Kramat, gradually. Bhavati, becomes. Tadgada, of that disease. Mula, of the root. Hantri, the destroyer. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The holy name, character, pastimes, and activities of Krishna are all transcendently sweet like sugar candy. Although the tongue of one afflicted by the jaundice of avidya, ignorance, cannot taste anything sweet, it is wonderful that simply by carefully chanting these sweet names every day, a natural relish awakens within his tongue and his disease is gradually destroyed at the root. Of course, this is a very famous example which is given here, namely that when we are suffering from avidya or ignorance, it is considered to be the worst of diseases. There is a material disease called jaundice, hepatitis I think it is called in the West. Jaundice means when your body turns yellow. It is a disease of the liver. The body turns yellow, the eyes become yellow, the fingernails, when you press them underneath, the skin looks yellow, everything becomes yellow. Everybody's checking their fingernails now. I don't think you have jaundice. In any case, this jaundice, the special quality of jaundice is that everything you eat tastes bitter. Everything. In fact, the sweetest things also taste bitter. The sweetest thing is sugarcane juice or sugar candy. Even that tastes bitter. Now, when one is suffering from this jaundice-like condition, it is said that the cure for it is to take sugarcane juice as much as possible. It is a very nice cure. It's the one. When we went first to India, the devotees had never got such nice prasadam, right? So when they went to India, they were very eager to eat all samosa, kachori, puri, halwa. They were eating like anything, everything. And most of them got this jaundice. Almost everybody got jaundice. So I used to, by Krishna's mercy, I never got jaundice, but I was always running about purchasing sugarcane juice for everyone. And the one consolation of this disease, just like, the one consolation was to drink the sugarcane juice. Just like if you they used to, I don't know if they still do, but they used to remove the tonsils, right? And when you remove tonsils the first few days, what are you given? Ice cream. So everybody thinks. The children think anyway, it's, you break even. You lose your tonsils, but you get to eat as much ice cream as you want. So in the same way, the devotees got jaundice, but they could drink as much sugarcane juice as they wanted to. And the special feature of drinking the sugarcane juice is that as you drink it, slowly you recover from the disease, and the natural sweetness of the juice becomes realized by the tongue. As you recover, the way you know that you're recovering is you start to taste the sugarcane juice as sweet. So all of this is an example to show us the nature of our material disease and the cure. The cure for our material disease, after all, material disease means forgetfulness of Krishna. The cure for forgetfulness of Krishna is to remember Krishna. But unfortunately, in the beginning, when you have forgetfulness of Krishna, when you are materially affected, hearing about Krishna, chanting about Krishna, anything to do with Krishna is not very palatable. Just like sometimes we say to someone, please come to the temple. They say, well, I have this meeting and I have this. My relatives have just come into town. They just flew here from India. They always have some perfect excuse why they cannot be here. But the real fact is they have got this disease, materialism. And therefore, when they hear or chant or anything, they find it very unpleasant. When they chant Hare Krishna or hear, they're just bored, or even worse, they don't like it at all. So, such person should understand, first of all, that they're in a materially diseased condition. And second thing they must realize is the only way they're going to get free from the problem is by hearing and chanting Krishna's name. Krishna's name is none different than Krishna. All of the transcendental potencies of the Lord are within His holy name. So as we chant, our natural taste for the chanting will increase. Don't expect that in the beginning when you chant Hare Krishna, it's going to be very pleasant. Maybe it will be for a while, maybe you're very fortunate, you may be advanced. But generally speaking, it is in the beginning not very attractive. That is why we see devotees, they get bored chanting and they want to do something else, or they cannot chant 16 rounds in a row. But actually, just as a person suffering from sugarcane juice, we should understand that by regularly chanting Hare Krishna, our relish for Krishna's name will awaken. It will gradually develop. So we have to actually force ourselves in the beginning to chant. Unless we force ourselves to chant, the tasting will not come. Don't expect it simply to come of its own. That will not happen. It will come as you gradually improve yourself in spiritual life. Prabhupada points out that there are different stages of the chanting. This, of course, we have covered in the topic of Harinam Chintamani. The first stage is the offensive stage, when one is kanista. One of the qualities of a kanista adhikari, a neophyte devotee, is that when he chants Hare Krishna, he commits offenses against the holy name. The next stage is in between the offensive stage and the pure stage. We call it the clearing stage, which is nam abhas. Nam abhas means when a devotee avoids the 10 offenses and starts to glimpse the real potency of the holy name. He gets some idea for the first time of what it means to chant Hare Krishna. As soon as you stop committing 10 offenses, you begin to relish the taste. What is the goal of chanting? Do you know what the goal of chanting is? Can anyone say? What is the goal of chanting Hare Krishna? More chanting. How is that an answer? The goal of chanting is more chanting. We're not chanting to do something different. Because in the liberated condition, one chants 24 hours a day. So we are chanting to be able to chant more. We are praying to Krishna for the opportunity to get a taste for the holy name. Oh Lord, please give me a little taste. Even a little taste, you see, will drown me in the ocean of your wonderful, pastimes. Just a little bit of the taste of chanting. So, glimpsing the glories of the holy name is called namabhas. And then, of course, there is the pure stage. Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam in the Sikshastakam. When liberated from the blazing fire of material existence, one relishes spiritual life. You get freed from the blazing fire of material existence. This material existence is like a blazing forest fire. So when you chant purely the holy name, it is like a downpour of rain. It is like a flood of mercy. And the forest fire is immediately vanquished. And you feel completely ecstatic. No more material suffering. Complete ecstasy. This is Sudhanam, pure name, chanting the pure name. So this is the highest stage. Ultimately, the process of bhakti should lead to the development of love of God. In this regard, there is a very wonderful verse by Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And it describes the different stages of the development of love of God, beginning with Shraddha, or faith. Adau Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sango Tabhajana Kriya Tato Nartha Nivritti Shat Tato Nishta Ruchis Tatha Ata Shakti Tato Bhavas Tata Prema Vyudanchati Sadakanam Ayam Premna Praturabhave Bhavet Ramaha. In the beginning, I'll describe to you what this actually means, step by step. It describes the development of love of God. In the beginning, the first stage is Shraddha. Shraddha means faith. Now, faith means to give up the desire for material enjoyment. This is the actual meaning of faith. Giving up the desire for material enjoyment. And our Krishna Consciousness movement is especially meant for creating this faith. This whole movement is set up in such a way that it is meant for diminishing material desires. For example, the deities, the deity of Prabhupada and Guru Puja, the Bhagavatam class, the chanting, Prasadam, all of these create faith within the heart of a devotee. So ISKCON is meant for establishing this pure atmosphere in which faith easily is found. The next stage is called Sadhu Sangha. Everybody knows what that means. Association with devotees. What kind of devotees? Pure devotees. Who's a pure devotee? A pure devotee is someone who is on the path of devotional service without material motivation. Even he may not yet have achieved the goal, at least he's on the path of pure devotion. He's no longer trying for material fulfillment of material desires. This is a pure devotee. And ISKCON's giving association of these pure devotees, these are called Madhyamadikaris. So our movement is meant for creating thousands, tens of thousands of at least Madhyam Bhaktas, middle-class devotees who can deliver Krishna consciousness. By their association, all the materialists can be picked up. So, as one's faith increases by chanting, then one can become a member of ISKCON. If you associate with the temple, come here, develop faith, you start to chant. And then gradually you want to join us in some way. Maybe you don't get initiated, maybe you become a life member. Maybe you donate some part of your income. Maybe you give some service to the temple in some way. This means sadhu sangha. You start to give association. And from this, the Prabhupada mentions how the Sankirtan devotees go from town to town, village to village, and by their sadhu sangha, by their association, sometimes we see so many people join. Within a few days even, people meet our devotees and they say, I want to join you. I want to shave my head, or I want to chant Hare Krishna. Even though, in a sense, they may be imitating, still there's some benefit. Still there's benefit. And amongst those who are more serious and start following the practice, gradually, as someone starts to follow the practice of Krishna consciousness, the next thing is, he wants initiation. He understands that now I have a firm goal in mind, I want to go back to Godhead, and he looks for a pure devotee guru, someone who can teach him what is pure Krishna Bhakti. And when he takes initiation, this is called Bhajana Kriya. Bhajana Kriya. He is initiated if he is sincere, and he's engaged by the guru in chanting 16 rounds daily and following the 4 regulative principles. So from this Bhajana Kriya stage, the next stage comes Anartha Nivritti. What is Anartha Nivritti? When all the anarthas, all the unwanted things are purified from the heart. In other words, under the direction of the spiritual master, one performs pure devotional service. He engages fully in Krishna's service. And by engaging fully in the service of Krishna, all that is unclean is wiped out of the heart. So this stage is called anartha nivritti. If one is fully engaged under the Guru's order, then this will happen after some time. Then the next is that next thing comes Nishta. Nishta means firm faith or steadiness. He is relieved of all anarthas, and because of no more material desires, no more material impurities, his service is absolutely steady. Nothing can budge him. This is an advanced stage. We call this Nishta. And from the Nishta stage comes Ruchi. Ruchi means taste. He begins to get the actual taste. We start to see some tendency for spontaneous devotion developing. Without being forced, he is already tasting the bliss of Krishna consciousness, and he very eagerly takes on more and more service at Krishna's lotus feet. So this is called Ruchi. And from Ruchi comes Ashakti. Ashakti means attachment. He becomes very much attached to the spiritual devotional activities of the Lord. And he cannot tolerate for even one moment being separated from any service to Krishna. He wants to constantly, 24 hours a day, be engaged in devotion. And then from this Ashakti comes Bhava. Bhava means the preliminary awakening of our dormant love of God. Bhava is the liberated stage, when one is already beginning to awaken his eternal loving devotion to Krishna. So, the Bhava stage, Prabhupada says, is free of material existence, and one loses interest in the bodily concept of life. The bodily concept of life holds no attraction whatsoever for him. He doesn't identify. One who is in Bhava Bhakti no longer identifies with any material conception. His entire understanding is in relationship to his eternal identity to Krishna. He doesn't identify any longer with this material body. This is a liberated condition. Prabhupada gives a very nice quotation regarding this. In the Chaitanya Chaitamrita, you can just see it. It's the last page 71 and 72. Krishna Surya Sam Maya Haya Andakar Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Maya Ardikar. Krishna is compared to sunshine, and Maya is compared to darkness. Wherever there is sunshine, there cannot be darkness. As soon as one takes to Krishna consciousness, the darkness of illusion, the influence of the external energy will immediately vanish. So when one becomes fully Krishna conscious, achieving Bhava Bhakti, then there is no more darkness. There is no more ignorance. One sees Krishna expanded everywhere. So our goal is to finally come to this Bhava stage. It develops beginning with Shraddha, with faith. From Shraddha, we have to get good association, sadhu sangha, then eventually become qualified for the Bhajana Kriya stage, means initiation, and under the guidance of the Guru, anartha nivritti, clearing the heart of all dirty things, until we come to Nishta, steadiness, and from Nishta, ruchi, taste, and then ashakti, means attachment, and at last bhava, and ultimately Krishna Prema. So our goal is to one day come to the stage of Krishna Prema. That will happen if we are very patient and determined in this Krishna consciousness. Now let us see if anybody has any questions. We tried to answer them. Brahma Samhita?
So last night you mentioned that in this Bhakti, the problem is that he's still spiritually affected. I was wondering, does that mean that a person on the stage of Madhyama Adhikar, does that mean he's at the level of Anartha Vritti, at least on that level?
Madhyam, there's the stages that we're talking about, Kanista, Madhyam, and Uttama, are broad categories. So in the very lowest stage of Madhyam, there may be still some anarthas, but in the proper stage of Madhyam, then one should clear his anarthas completely. In the proper advanced stage of Madhyam, there's no more anarthas. But as I say, the category is broad. Therefore, we should understand that in the beginning stage, there may be some anarthas. Another question?
If Rahasa family, would he attain all that 9 stages within that time?
Yes. Oh, yes. Bhaktivedanta Thakur says that the best position to be in is as a grihastha. Best position. Bhaktivedanta Thakur achieved the highest position, Krishna Prema, as a grihastha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a grihastha. Nityananda Prabhu was a grihastha. Advaita Acharya was a grihastha. Srivas Pandit was a grihastha. Prabhupada was in grihastha ashram. So many acharyas are in the grihastha ashram. No problem. There's absolutely no difficulty as a grihastha if the husband and wife cooperate together for helping each other. That doesn't mean that you have to work hard as a grihastha. Yesterday we explained that a grihastha who is strictly following the principles of Krishna consciousness is considered a brahmachari grihastha. He is as much a brahmachari as a celibate monk, if he's strictly following the principles. He's actually called brahmachari grihastha. The grihastha position is very nice for executing spiritual life.
In your experience from Sadhu Sangha to the 9th stage, how long period are you talking about?
We're not talking about a fixed time because it depends on the individual's sincerity. Prabhupada used to say, it can take one moment or it can take a lifetime. It depends totally on the individual. If the individual is extremely sincere, then naturally it hastens the process. It depends on the individual. We cannot give a fixed answer on this point, how long it will take. But we have seen practically that our devotees in ISKCON are advancing steadily. There are members of our society that are at a very advanced stage. And it goes quickly. As one picks up the theme of pure devotional service, then advancement comes very quickly by grace of Krishna. The whole thing is eventually to understand that there is no taste in this material world. When you really firmly come to the conviction that there is no taste in the material world, then you start becoming very serious and you make rapid advancement. Then you must pick out advanced devotees to associate with. Most important thing is to find more advanced association. That's the key to advancement in spiritual life. It is 100% the key. 100% the key. Apart from being regulated and strict in one's sadhana, the main key is associate with more advanced devotee. They'll give you all understanding and guidance in all respects.
In the previous lecture, you mentioned that each Krishna domain is first class, temple first class, yogic first class, God first class, sannyasi first class, spiritual first class. I found that there are so many people like that. They like this movement. They come regular, they chant regular. But still, I found that they don't have interest in Prabhupada. They're always taking the offense or fault like that. So, could you please highlight on this?
Someone who does not read Prabhupada's books is sentimental. They're not serious about Krishna consciousness. They're more or less sentimental. That means basically they're on the Kanistha platform. In order to understand this movement and in order to know Krishna, you have to be fixed in the philosophy. In order to be fixed in the philosophy, which is the Madhyam position, you have to read the books. If you don't read the books, you remain Kanistha. It's a very simple point. You will not be able to actually know what is what. You cannot just know by your feelings. The whole point of having guru is to learn. Learning means to study. What does the guru do? He doesn't give you his own philosophy, his own ideas. He teaches you the books. In our ISKCON, our gurus do one thing. They teach Prabhupada's books. They teach you how to understand what's in Prabhupada's books. That is the whole purpose of guru. Guru is simply teaching you what Krishna is saying. And Prabhupada's books are presenting Krishna. So the whole purpose of having guru is to take instruction from him in understanding Prabhupada's books. So if one is not on that level, then he's kanista. That means he's not ready to hear from guru. He's not hearing from Prabhupada's books means he's not very serious yet. He's more satisfied to remain sentimentally attached. But that person is not there. You'll see that they're not going to be steady. You cannot depend on them steadily for service. Because their connection is sentimental, they go up and down. But if you want to find someone who's steady and strong, you'll find that they read Prabhupada's books. They can never be shaken in their determination and understanding. Nothing can budge them. As we were reading today, that you remember we were reading that they be very steady in their devotion. So, you must give time for reading. It doesn't matter how busy you are, give time. Give time. Not only for reading, also for hearing. You're all driving to work. Get the lecture tapes and listen. I listen. I'm very busy. I don't have to drive to work. So the only time I get to listen to the lecture tapes is when I'm taking my bath. Every morning for a half hour, I'm in the bathroom. I got my tape playing the full time. Because I'm so busy, I don't have to drive to work. But I must listen every day to a lecture somehow. I can't miss that. And plus, I read every day, 1 hour, 2 hours a day, I'm reading. I have always been reading. Since the moment I joined this movement, I've been reading. And I'll never stop reading, because Prabhupada was always reading. Prabhupada used to love to read his own books, because he said, they're not my books, they're Krishna's. So, you must read. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always reading and hearing from his devotees. Bhaktivedanta was always reading. The whole end of his life, he was always reading Chaitanya Chaitamrita. But this is the way of the Vaishnavas. They're always hearing and chanting from Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Chaitamrita. They can never tire of it. So you must give time. And if you say, I don't have a taste or I can't concentrate, you practice. You have to practice. You don't have a taste to go to work, but you go to work. If it's only due to taste, then stop going to work. But you have a taste for the thing that comes from the work. Money is sweeter than honey. But sweeter than honey is this philosophy. Krishna is the sweetest of all. So, please read Prabhupada's books. My whole purpose in giving this series is to show you how nice are these books. That's why I give this series in these different books. Now you can see, here's a wonderful book. A small little book, but so much is in it. So much is there. We've only covered 7 mantras. Still there are 4 mantras remaining. There's so much, and you can read and reread many, many times over. I'm giving this lecture series in so many temples, and I don't tire of speaking on and reading this book. Every time I give this lecture series, I read the book again. And it gets sweeter and sweeter. That's the nature of spiritual life. Material life becomes boring. Spiritual life increases its sweetness. So now we can see the sweetest of all persons, Sri Sri Radha Nila Madhava. And please take seriously all these instructions that you have gotten in this class. I hope that you will be able to listen again and again to these tapes and also read the Nectar of Instruction. Hare Krishna.